Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to 360 Digit MG. Welcome to another session of interview preparation. So we shall be having random questions being placed. All right. Okay. So first things first, how to address imbalance in data set. All right. So first things first, you may want to answer with. So let me just put. Okay. Answer with what is imbalance. Use the 70-30 rule. Use the expression imbalance and not imbalance. All right. These are the two things that you must ensure. Then to address the imbalance data, all right, you can have check in partition of data when you are partitioning it to train and test. Classes are in same proportion in each. Check the proportion of data, ensure that there are same proportion in each data. All right. That is basically stratified sampling. Okay, that is one thing. Next, when the minor class is very rare, example, non-fraudulent cases will be much more than fraudulent cases. So obviously we cannot expect to do the partitioning. So in certain scenarios we may want to try what is known as oversampling of minority class, undersample of majority class, synthetic oversampling, etc. All right. Then of course there is a method called Crayford's cross validation. Now what is going to happen? What is bound to happen when you have explained this way? All right. So what happens when you have imbalance in data set? You touch upon these topics, like you touch upon you know the the 70-30 rule. You touch upon the use the word imbalance and not imbalance. You explain about ensuring the partitioning is done, that is stratified sampling. You may want to also touch upon the rare events, all right, wherein you have give the example of fraudulent, and suppose in case of non-fraudulent and fraudulent transactions, we expect the fraudulent transactions to be a very small percentage, less than 2-3%. Even if we try to do stratified sampling, it may not be beneficial. So if it is possible, then we can go for oversampling of minority class, undersampling of majority class, or there are some synthetic oversampling methods, or you can also try cross validation. Now when you mention this, quite obviously two things can happen. One, he may ask you explain more. All right, or all right, so this is what you can expect to happen. All right, this is what you can expect to happen at the end. Okay, now let us look at let us address one by one. So what is cross validation? I'll come back to oversampling in a moment. What is this thing? So cross validation is a method Pardon me. In splitting the data into multiple sets of train and test. That is what I was looking for, the word. Multiple sets of train and test, whereby all right. K number of times. You may go a step further by saying, uh, K fold K-fold cross validation is the most popular method. Wherein this process till all the this process is repeated K times till all the folds have had a chance to become test data. All right. So that is one thing that you can mention there about the K-fold cross validation. Now, so there are various methods within this types. K-fold cross validation. All right. So be careful when you are mentioning these things. You must obviously have good amount of information to be able to explain. Now, it is very rare for the interviewer to go question within question within question. So you ask when you answer, and within the answer is going to pick up a question. You give another answer, within that is going to pick up a question. That is kind of very rare because they have their agenda, the kind of things. Also because it is something to do with their the job description for which they are hiring you, right? They cannot be going off into one path, whereas when they have hired you for a specific activity. So that is something that you may want to look at it. All right. So next, let us continue our discussion. Okay. Now continuing with our discussion about the sampling and all that, the next question I'm going to make it a little simple. So it involves basically method where a large population can be divided into smaller groups with assumption that do not overlap. All right. All right. They do not overlap, but represent the entire population together. Okay. While sampling, these groups can be organized and draw samples from each group separately. So that is what we have with reference to what is meaning of stratified sampling. All right. So now the follow-up question will be, when to use stratified random sampling? When the data is when the output data is imbalanced, one of the methods. When the number of classes are many and when one of the classes may get skipped. Okay, so these are the two scenarios when we go for stratified random sampling. Okay, so continuing our discussion with reference to sampling, what is systematic sampling? Systematic sampling is an extended implementation of the same technique of probability sampling, but all right, same. So this way there is an equal to be selected over a period of time. All right, so that is systematic sampling. What is a Bernoulli distribution? All right, now we've often heard this particular expression, what is a Bernoulli distribution? All right, a Bernoulli distribution is simply the fundamental of the discrete probability distribution between binary outputs. All right, so one of the things about the Bernoulli trials you can probably understand is that a discrete random variable that has countable values, all right, sorry, okay, that has countable variables such as a list of non-negative integers is part of the Bernoulli trials. All right, so that is another thing. Now what you need to remember is there is something called as the Bernoulli trials. All right. So basically, each of the trials has two possibilities. One is treated as the success, heads, and the other is the failure. All right. So this is basically what is known as Bernoulli trials. You can have a series of Bernoulli trials. Okay. And similarly, of late I've had questions, people asking, continuing with the reference to this, what is a Bernoulli model? All right. So a Bernoulli model can be described as a model for a set of possible outcomes um, um, of any single experiment. Yeah, for want of a better word, we'll use an experiment that has a yes, no, failure, accept, reject kind of a scenario. Now, obviously, such questions, all right, um, lead to the outcomes being Boolean valued. All right. So, all right, lead to being Boolean valued. So that is where we have the Bernoulli model. All right. All right. So let's break away from the probability measures, etc., and let's move to something slightly different. Okay. So the student's t distribution, or simply called the t distribution, is a probability distribution that is used to estimate population parameters when the sample size is small, that's the keyword, and when the population variance is unknown. All right. So that is essentially what student's t distribution is all about. All right. Okay. Now, in certain cases, they are also looking at certain questions as what is Fisher's distribution? All right. So this is also a probability density function. All right. It is also a probability density function. That is especially used in the analysis of variance. Okay. And is a function of the ratio of two independent random variables. Now, this brings in have a chi-square distribution. Sorry, not has degrees of freedom. That is studied in the relation to the degrees of freedom. So that is what it is. Continuing our discussion with reference to distributions, what is hypergeometric distribution? So the hypergeometric distribution is a discrete probability distribution, all right. Um, that describes the probability of success um, in drawing without replacement. From a finite population, all right. So hypergeometric distribution is something like, drawing cards, all right. And that is where you might have heard about the counting of the cards. Some of the people, who go for doing gambling, etc., right? Some of these skilled people are experts in, card counting, etc. So that is something that they may be looking at, all right. So given that we have just discussed about chi-square distribution, it logically follows, all right, what is chi-square distribution? Okay. So chi-square distribution is the distribution of the sum of the squared of the standard normal distribution. All right, or actually they are called deviates. All right, they are called the deviates, standard normal deviates, and degree of freedom is so if you are dealing with, let us say, multiple distribution of for example, the chi-square distribution, to give you an understanding, let us say you are dealing with distribution of children under 7 years of age is one distribution. Children above 7, below 8 is one distribution. Children above 8, below 9 is one distribution. So on and so forth. If you have such multiple distributions, all right, and if you are going to take the square of those standard normal distribution values and add them up, you will get the chi-square distribution for these various deviates. So that is what we have here with reference to the chi-square distribution. All right. All right. So let us take it down a notch. So what is binomial distribution? All right. Yeah. What is binomial distribution? A binomial random variable a random variable where x is less than or equal to n. All right. Or rather, let me put it this way. Obviously, it is also called as binomial experiment. And Bernoulli trials. All right. All right. So, pardon the typographical errors. So, all trials should be Bernoulli trials. That is success, failure. The P should be constant throughout the experiment. While the experiment is in progress, you shouldn't change the settings of the experiment. And the trial should be independent of each other. Just because we have had one or two successes, we shouldn't, get something different. So that is what we need to take care. So we will take one more case study. One more question. So to put it simply, it is the number of failures till or all right. So all the number of failures till X number of successes have been achieved. That is a simple way of putting it. Or the probability of a finite number of successes in n trials, where n can take the value x, x plus 1, x plus 2, so on and so forth till infinity. So that is essentially what we have. All right. So today we restricted our discussion with reference to the various distributions, and you know these are something that is important. So what I'll do is just give me a moment. So I'm also sharing this. All right. So just trying to share it in the chat, but that's not possible. But nevertheless, you can definitely get in touch with 360 Digit MG. Please follow our channel. All right. And many more such amazing content will be shared with you. And please do like, share, and continue to learn.